Hey guys, welcome back to the Workbench. This is where we normally talk about ceiling fan history, trivia, and technical information, but I have a little bit of a tangent today. Today we're going to talk about House on the Rock. And if you follow me on social media or YouTube, you probably already are aware of House on the Rock, and there's a good chance you're aware of it if you don't normally follow me and you're just finding this video. It is, for lack of a better term, a tourist attraction in southern Wisconsin. Some people will refer to it as a museum. I think their Facebook page technically calls it a museum. They were not legally allowed to call it a museum for reasons that we'll get to a little bit later, at least at one time. The best way that I can describe it, and this is 100% true, is a crazy person started building a house, and then it was interesting enough that people wanted to come see it, and he started charging them money, and he used the money to buy collections, and he used the money to build buildings to house the collections, and then as more people came, he started charging more money and started buying more collections and building more buildings. And when he died, he left behind a complex of weird buildings and even weirder collections. It's relevant to this channel because there's plenty of ceiling fans involved in it. Most of them were probably added after he died. Not actually sure. Some of them might be before. We're not really going to talk about ceiling fans in this video very much, but ceiling fans is how I happened to get involved in it, because I went several times as a kid and loved it. And then the reason I went back as an adult had to do with my work for the museum. And so I ended up falling in love with it all over again as an adult. It is just a very strange place. If you don't know what it is and you want to find out more, I think the best way, other than visiting yourself, is to go on my YouTube channel, where I have all the video footage from when the TV show American Gods filmed there. And I also have interviews with the cast and author of American Gods talking about it. I think that's the best, because when they filmed there, they captured it as best as you can. So if you look at that footage, that's what it looks like. Of course, the very best way is to go and see yourself. And if you do, I would love to take you. I live about an hour away. If anybody ever wants to visit and they'd like somebody to take them, I'm your guy. I love taking people there. It's one of my favorite things to do. So, what had happened was, I was researching House on the Rock for the House on the Rock Facebook group. And people were talking about the changes in admission prices over the years. And because, again, legend has it, and most of this is confirmed, that originally it was just a guy building a thing, and people came to see it, and when he realized he couldn't get rid of them, he started charging them money. And so it started out, historical documents say it started out charging him a quarter. According to American Gods, it was a nickel. That might be, dramatic license or literary license. And if you want to go today, it costs $37. And again, if I take you, and under certain circumstances, I'm usually willing to treat. Not to mention, I have a annual pass that gets me a discount. But that's neither here nor there. People wanted to know how it got from a quarter to $37. And so I started researching that, and then that took me down a rabbit hole of a lot of other interesting and cool stuff that I found out that a lot of people who are diehard fans of it like me probably don't know. Last thing I'll say is I found a lot of interesting newspaper articles about it, and I will publish those in a separate slideshow so you can see them if you're watching this on YouTube. Otherwise, they will be uploaded in the House on the Rock attraction Facebook group. So when I started taking notes on it, I wrote it out like a timeline, just like I do for Workbench videos, and that's what made me decide, hey, you know what? I might as well do a Workbench video on this. So our story starts in 1944. Alex Jordan Jr. begins construction. If you're watching this video, you probably already know who he is. He's the crazy guy who built this place. But he was an only child of parents who were, his dad was owned a construction company and built homes and commercial buildings and things of that nature. And Alex Jordan Jr. was not young by this point, but he already kind of didn't know what he wanted to do with his life. He was still living with his parents, didn't really have any direction, and found this rock in the middle of nowhere where he liked to sit. There's a legend about his dad and Frank Lloyd Wright that is talked about, but all we know for sure is that he found this place that he liked to just kind of go and sit and relax and get away from everything. And he built himself originally a tent, and then built himself more and more permanent structures there to go and hang out. And that's what became the House on the Rock. And he started building the first permanent structure in 1944. An interesting piece of information is he did not own the land. He did not rent the land. He was literally squatting and built a building where he was squatting. So in 1944 is when he first started building an actual structure, not just sleeping there in a tent on Deer Shelter Rock in Spring Green, Wisconsin. And people started, looking to see what was going on, and he'd shoot them away. And when it was clear that they couldn't be deterred, he started charging them. That was 1944. 1952 is the next milestone. That's when electricity is added. There was no electricity before that. 1953 is when the first phase of the house was completed. Alex Jordan Jr. leases the land. He gets in contact with the people who own the land and leases it for $7.50 a year, and he signs a 40-year lease. 1956, his dad, who's a developer, gets wind of what's happening and makes an offer on the land and buys the land and the surrounding 240 acres for $12,000. In 1958, that mortgage is paid off. In 1960, the House on the Rock officially opens to the public. Admission cost is 50 cents. He made $15 the first day, $5,000 that year. 1961 is when, I'm going to start over because I made a couple of mistakes. Hey guys, welcome back to the Workbench. This is normally where we discuss ceiling fan history, trivia, and technical information, but today we're going to talk about something a little bit different. So, as always, if you want to see more footage, behind-the-scenes footage, go to patreon.com/dspiffy. Okay, so today we're going to talk about House on the Rock. And if you follow me on social media, you should be aware of House on the Rock because I post about it in pretty much all of my social media. I post videos that relate to it. I post pictures. I invite people to come with me. And in fact, if you have never been and you want to go and you can get somewhere near Madison, Wisconsin, or Dodgeville, Wisconsin, or Spring Green, Wisconsin, I will take you. It will be my treat. I would love to take you. If you are somebody who follows me and is interested in going to House on the Rock, I would love to take you to House on the Rock. What is House on the Rock? To sum it up as quickly as possible, a crazy man started squatting on a piece of rock and decided to build a structure there before he even owned the land. People came to see what was going on. When he couldn't get rid of them, he started charging them money, started building more, started charging more money, started building more, started charging more money. When he got tired of building, he started collecting stuff. And I do mean stuff. Literally, if you can think of it, if somebody collects it, there's some somewhere in House on the Rock, including ceiling fans. And he started collecting more stuff, charging more money, collecting more stuff, charging more money. This whole process went on from the 50s or so until he died 40 years later. And he left behind a sprawling complex of buildings and collections that is much weirder than it sounds. It's one of my favorite places in the world. I originally went as a kid and loved it. I went back as an adult because of my work with the museum, because there's some custom-made ceiling fans there that I wanted to look into for the museum. And now it's just become my thing. I like taking people there who've never been there before because it's the kind of place you cannot describe it to someone. If you want to know what it is and you haven't been there and you can't go anytime soon, best thing I can suggest, go on my YouTube channel. I've posted all the footage from the show American Gods, which filmed there because it was based on a book that was set there. And that footage is a pretty accurate assessment of what it's like. So if you watch that footage, that's pretty much a fair shake for House on the Rock. I mean, it's still, you can only describe so much with even with a lens. But also then you can read the book American Gods. That gives you a clue about it. And there's some interviews with the cast of American Gods, and that will tell you a bit about it. You can look it up on Google. Again, I don't think anything does it justice, and I also feel like if you've never been, it's much more fun to go with the less knowledge you have. The less you know about it ahead of time, the more fun it is. But if you watch, especially just the first clip from American Gods that I posted on YouTube, that gives you enough information. So, okay, so I wrote out a timeline. And what was happening was there's a Facebook group on House on the Rock, and people were asking about the changes in the admission price over the years. If you go today, it costs $37. And on the first day, according to history, it was 25 cents. And so people wanted to know how it got from 25 cents to $37. And I was just researching it, and I learned a lot about the way that's not included in the public history of House on the Rock. A lot of stuff you might not know, even if you pay attention to their official, historical documents, as well as there have been several books written, some flattering, some non-flattering, some with official approval, some without. We'll talk about that a little bit too. So I learned some cool stuff, and I wrote it out in the timeline, and I just wanted to share it with you. So in 1944, Alex Jordan Jr. begins construction on just a structure, a hut, on Deer Shelter Rock. Originally, he'd found Deer Shelter Rock as just a place to go and just sit and meditate and whatever. There's a legend that it had to do with his father, Alex Jordan Sr., who was a developer and a feud with Frank Lloyd Wright, whose school was within view of the rock. We'll talk about that another time. That's a legend. It's not. House on the Rock Incorporated disputes that legend, but a lot of people claim it's true. In any case, 1944 is when our story starts today. It's when he begins construction of an actual structure on the rock. After initially refusing visitors, he began charging them 25 cents. The book American Gods says 5 cents, or they say a nickel. That's 1944. The next milestone in 1952, electricity is added. In 1953, the first phase of the actual house that you see today, if you go there, is completed. Alex Jordan Jr. leases the land for $750 a year, and he signs a 40-year lease. It's important to note he did not own the land when he started building. He was literally building on somebody else's land. And then once he finished the structure, he went and found the owners of the land and made them an offer, and they weren't doing anything with it, so they were happy to take his $750 a year for a 40-year lease, which is pretty amazing. But his dad, the developer, got wind of what was happening, contacted the owners of the land, and in 1956, Alex Jordan Sr. buys the land and surrounding 240 acres for $12,000. Why, we'll never know. You don't get the impression he really believed in his son, but obviously he, felt it was worth something, or that he was trying to keep him out of trouble. In 1958, the mortgage on the land was paid off. Either that, or he wanted to own it to control his son. That's another possibility. You can tell from reading both this timeline and other history that they didn't have the greatest relationship. In 1960, House on the Rock unofficially opens to the public. Admission cost 50 cents. Alex Jordan Jr. made $15 the first day, $5,000 that year. In 1961, House on the Rock officially opens to the public. There is a stone marker placed on Highway 23, which is the closest highway. The gatehouse opened. So if you go there, now these days you have to go through a ticketing and admission and the Welcome Center and the Alex Jordan Center and all that. But once you get into the original structures, the first thing you encounter is the gatehouse, which is just basically a little, hosting house that you would go to before you got to the actual house. That was completed that year. Also, their gross profits for 61 were $34,000. Also in that year, House on the Rock hosted an art show. And that's going to be a theme throughout the years that Alex Jordan's mom was still alive, is that she used it to host art shows. Not with her art per se, but just as a lady of the community, she hosted art and fashion shows there. We're going to see that a lot. I think it's pretty cool. It's not often talked about. 1961 is also the first mention of House on the Rock in local newspapers. Mr. and Mrs. Alex Jordan Sr. host their 50th wedding anniversary at the House on the Rock. It's officially named, and it's referred to as their summer home. So their wedding anniversary is hosted at their summer home, House on the Rock. 1962 is the first mention of House on the Rock as an attraction or tourist destination by the Baraboo News Republic, which is the first newspaper to do so. Baraboo is another city that's quite close. The gross profits for 62 are $21,000, which is slightly less than the previous year. House on the Rock is incorporated as a legal corporation in the state of Wisconsin. In 1963, Alex Jordan Sr. dies, leaving his ownership of the land, house, and corporation to his wife, not his son. Admission is now $1.25, up from 50 cents, $1.50 on Sundays. And some sources say it was $1.50 every day, but most say it was $1.25 except on Sundays. In 1964, they add an aviary, birds, a duck pond, and a prairie dog village. A walkway replaces the drawbridge. Up until now, to get to the house, you had to go on a drawbridge, which I don't know if a lot of people realize that, because these days, if you go there, there's much more formal walkways. The gatehouse is completed, so you got to remember in a lot of this timeline, something will be opened before it is completed. They will build it, they will open it to the public, and they will keep working on it and complete it a year or two later. Alex Jordan Jr. takes out his first mortgage on House on the Rock for $30,000 so that he can invest more money into it. 1964. I think I screwed up again. We're going to start over. Hey guys, welcome back to the Workbench. This is where we normally talk about ceiling fan history, trivia, and technical information. But today we're going to talk about something only tangentially related. Today we're going to talk about House on the Rock. Before we get into it, as always, for behind the scenes footage and other cool stuff, go to patreon.com/dspiffy. Okay, why is that? Okay. Hello and welcome back to the Workbench. This is where we discuss ceiling fan history, trivia, and technical information. At least normally. Today we're going to discuss something a little different. Before we get into it, as always, if you go to patreon.com/dspiffy, there's a lot more content, hundreds more videos as a matter of fact, behind the scenes content, other cool stuff, so I thoroughly encourage you to check it out. So today, instead of ceiling fans, we're going to talk about House on the Rock. And there is a ceiling fan tie-in because there's a lot of very cool antique and vintage fans there. I went as a kid and was fascinated by, among other things, the fans. And it was ceiling fans that brought me back to it as an adult when I was working for the museum because there's some cool custom stuff there at House on the Rock. But I'm going to try again because I feel like this needs to be buttoned higher. And that doesn't count.